Welcome to the Smart Business Revolution.
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 You want a revolution?
You say you want a revolution?
Revolution. The revolution.
It's going on right now.
Welcome to The Revolution, the Smart Business Revolution podcast, where we ask today's most successful entrepreneurs to share the tools and strategies they use to build relationships and connections to grow their revenue. Now, your host for The Revolution, John Corcoran.
All right, welcome everyone. John Corcoran here, the host of this show. If you are new to listening to this podcast, go check out our archives. We've got all kinds of great episodes with smart CEOs, founders, and entrepreneurs, ranging from did Quicken a few weeks ago. We got Netflix, Kinko's, YPO, EO, Activation Blizzard. I'm also the co-founder of Rise25, where we help connect B2B business owners to their ideal prospects. And today I've got Richard Carthon. He's the CEO and host of Cryptocurrencies. So this is part of our crypto series that we're doing, introducing my audience to some of this emerging technology and ideas that are going to be prevalent in the years ahead and have a big impact, I believe, on society. Cryptocurrency is an educational platform about cryptocurrency and blockchain. And he does this through easy to understand, fun, digestible content that entails all kinds of different media, from blog posts to podcasts to YouTube videos. He's also involved in a number of different projects, including a cryptocurrency hedge fund, cryptocurrency venture fund, fintech education for college students. We'll get into all that. Been featured on the Today Show, did a TED Talk, has a lot to say about some concepts. And so I watched some of his videos on YouTube and thought he does a great job of explaining some of these concepts. And I'm slow on the uptake. So selfishly, I wanted to have him on here so that I could ask him questions and you all could benefit from that as well. And of course, this episode brought to you by Rise25, where we help B2B businesses to get clients, referrals, and strategic partnerships with Done For You podcasts and content marketing. Go to our website, rise25.com, if you want to learn more about it. All right, Richard, first of all, there's that saying, if you want something done, give it to a busy person to do. And you got like 5 different projects you're involved in. But you actually played football and baseball at Tulane, which is just insane. So I'm so impressed by that. And clearly you embrace that mantra of you want something done, give it to a busy person to do it. But where did this interest in crypto come from? You know, how did that first come about? I understand it was from a job that you had while you were working on your first startup.
That's right. And John, thank you for the great intro and thanks for having me on the show. So going back to 2018, I have experience when I first got out of college working in the financial industry, working at Merrill Lynch. I ended up leaving that job to do my first startup full time, where I had a calendar application. I was able to raise some money. I was able to hire my first employee, all of that. And basically I got to a point where I found that inflection point between I need to raise more capital, but I need to build out some more features. And so to help with doing that, I essentially decided to take myself and my employee off of payroll and then go and get a job at this AI company that was in town. And literally the very first day I was there, now this is the beginning of 2018, my boss says, "Hey, what do you know about crypto? Have you ever heard of Bitcoin and Ethereum?" I said, "What is that?" And he said, "Trust me, go look into it." And that one conversation kind of just changed the whole trajectory of like my career and where I was going to head and everything else. Because as I started to research the crypto world, I saw this as the future. I saw this as my internet moment of this is where the world is headed. How can I educate myself and be at the forefront of this new and emerging technology, which is blockchain?
Yeah. And was it immediate or did it take a little while? Because personally, I feel like it's taken waves of education, and I've probably listened to over 200 hours of podcast content, different interviews, people talking it through. For you, was it kind of an instant thing, or did it take a little while before you got the kind of the light bulb moment?
It took a while. So like, as I was first looking into it, I had my hesitancies. As I was trying to get research, there was kind of 2 distinct pieces of content that was being made at the time. It was either shilling, which basically means I'm going out and I'm trying to sell you on this thing. And if you do these things, you're going to make a ton of money. You're going to get to buy the Lambo and all that kind of stuff, which I didn't really buy into. And then you had super highly technical people talking about very in-depth things that were super over my head. My eyes would glaze over. I couldn't pay attention. And so I wanted to be able to learn, and also wanted to be able to, while on my journey of education, be able to educate others. And so that's how I came up with the concept of Cryptocurrent, my podcast I've now been doing for 4 years. We've done over 300 episodes with the whole goal of bridging the gap between people who know nothing about the space with thought leaders. And I learned through conversation, and I like to be able to, if someone can explain something to me and I can then repeat it back to them in my own way, I know that I got it, and I know that my audience can get it as well. And so it was definitely more of a gradual thing. And as like topics came up that I want to learn more about, I would just find someone I wanted to interview them on that topic. And through doing that enough, I was really able to take in a lot of really good information.
Sounds familiar. I've done the exact same thing. I love doing it. Well, so there's the granddaddy of them all. There's Bitcoin, right? Which is the original, the OG, right? And then there's all these other, there's, Ethereum, and there's many, many other types of cryptocurrency out there. There are some people who are full on like it's Bitcoin or nothing. And there are other people that are kind of in the other camp that say like, oh, there's other cryptocurrencies. Where do you fall in that range, or do you even pick a side?
Yeah, that's a great question. I am not a Bitcoin maximalist. Now, I understand the argument for Bitcoin maximalism. However, I am an opportunist, and where some of your largest opportunities are in altcoins. So altcoins are just alternatives to Bitcoin. Now, there's one distinction I want to establish from the jump as we start to break into the world of cryptocurrencies. So Bitcoin, as it was intended, and what it's mostly used for, is as a currency. It is as a way to have a reserve of holding value and then being able to transfer that value across. The rest of the cryptocurrencies, for example, the second cryptocurrency that came alive is Ethereum. Ethereum is a platform. It is not really meant to be an exchange of money and currency. It is, think of it like an iOS. So if you have an Apple phone, it uses the iOS system. And then on top of it, you have the App Store where things are built on top of it. So these other cryptocurrencies, layer twos, because Ethereum is a layer one, these dApps, decentralized apps, are built on top of Ethereum. And these are called decentralized apps, dApps. Mm-hmm. And these are cryptocurrencies. So all of these blockchain startups got wrapped into this world of cryptocurrencies, and they're not. Just think of them as blockchain startups. And as we all know about all startups, 90% of them fail. So the 10% that make it, though, have just such a large trajectory of opportunity that it doesn't make sense to only hyper focus on Bitcoin. You have to see the entire picture to be able to actualize on all of these opportunities that are out there.
Yeah. Yeah. What about the people that say that Bitcoin, some people say it's money. Some people say it's software. Other people, like Michael Saylor, say it's energy, which is an interesting one that takes a lot of explanation. Do you care? Does that even matter?
So you can make the argument for all three, and I don't see a reason why it can't be all three. Like, I don't know why it has to be this or that. It can be a multitude of things. When you think about like, what is money? Like, just arbitrarily, when you have a dollar bill, like, what does this represent? You'll get a ton of different answers. This is power. This is stability. This is freedom. Why can't Bitcoin have the same type of response depending on how you're looking at it? Ultimately, Bitcoin is providing a chance for people to take the power back, to have their own control of their financial stability. The whole point of why Bitcoin was made was in response to the 2008 financial crisis, when the housing market went under, and then the entire world kind of suffered because of it. So Satoshi Nakamoto, the pseudo-anonymous person, came out, wrote the white paper for Bitcoin, then was created in 2009. And from there, this one concept, this one entity, 20,000 plus cryptocurrencies have emerged from then over the course of the next decade.
Yeah.
So my answer is Bitcoin, to me, represents the future and financial freedom.
Right. It's funny you mentioned Satoshi Nakamoto. So this is the creator of Bitcoin. And it bothered me initially that he disappeared off the map. So there's a track record. He was active. No one knew who he was. But there were some people that interacted with him, had direct emails or her or a group of people. But it seems like it was one person, and then just disappeared off the map. At some point said, I'm going to focus on other things. And it's a little bizarre because now we don't know who this person, know nothing about this person. What are your thoughts on that? And does that bother you at all?
It doesn't. They've done some looking into it, and it's probably a group of 5 different people, both men and women, who come under the umbrella of Satoshi Nakamoto. It doesn't bother me that they came together and created this. Ultimately, by Bitcoin having a finite supply, it being immutable, it being built on blockchain, it makes you your own bank and allowing for full transparency and some pseudo-anonymity, aka like you don't necessarily know who's on the end of it, but you can always follow it in to a certain number of letters, et cetera. That is the transaction. They have inevitably created this amazing thing that is Bitcoin that doesn't have to have one face, or it doesn't have to say like, I own this thing, I run this thing, and now I need to be at the forefront of it. For example, with Ethereum, Vitalik obviously was one of the lead creators of it and is seen as the figurehead of Ethereum. And a lot of people look to him when things are happening, like the ETH 2.0 merger or other things. Like, even though the way the things are set up now, he doesn't make the ultimate decisions because it is now decentralized and the community can now make whatever decisions and overturn him. By Satoshi Nakamoto kind of being this anonymous figurehead, it really keeps the purity of creating a decentralized money that anyone can have access to, and that was meant to outlive the people that created it. One really interesting argument, I think, is around countries, maybe third world countries that have had runaway inflation where the money has been devalued. And traditionally, it was very difficult for people to move their money, one, to protect it against this kind of runaway inflation, which is often a combination of factors. It might have been the government mismanaging or whatever, the monetary fiscal supply. But there could be various different reasons. But so the one issue is this runaway inflation has just stripped people's wealth. And then another issue is, or an argument for using cryptocurrencies, is the ability to take that wealth that people have accumulated and be able to transfer it to another part of the globe. And it was something that was very difficult to do before because you can only carry so much gold bars. And maybe if you're fleeing a country due to oppression, you're not even able to take any of that money out. So talk a little bit about the ways in which that is an argument for adopting forms of cryptocurrency. I think this is a great question, and this is going to be a very long-winded answer, but everyone please stick with me. Like, I promise these 2 stories are going to really bring it all home. So when I first got into crypto, I was very into Ethereum and into altcoins, and I eventually got to Bitcoin. What got me there for Bitcoin was 2 different things that happened. The first was I had a friend who was living in the Philippines. I was working in oil and gas. And when he was making his money, he would get paid in the local currency. He'd have to convert it into the US dollar, then would send the money to his family back in the United States. And through all of that, he'd lose 40% of his money. It would take 5 to 10 business days. And he was getting frustrated. So what he started to do was convert his money to Bitcoin. He would transfer it to his family, and it would only cost a couple of dollars.
Yeah.
And it would only take a couple of minutes.
Wow.
And I was like, that makes so much sense. I'm like, that's what helped bring cryptocurrency as a whole to me. But also I was like, okay, this Bitcoin thing, there might be something to this. I was like, where in the world can you go where your dollar is a dollar is a dollar? Wherever you go to another country, you got to convert it. And there's all these conversion rates, but a Bitcoin is a Bitcoin anywhere in the globe. And I think that's really powerful. Now, the second story that really drove it home for me, and actually is a service I now use, it was someone who came on my show. His name was Jan Pritzker. He was the CTO of Swan Bitcoin. which is now, I think, just one. And he was telling me the story about his family and how his family like survived the Holocaust. And when they were leaving and coming to the States, the only thing one of his family members had was this, or she had a pendant, and one of the soldiers took it from her. And so when they got to the States, they were all the wealth that they had accumulated over the years was gone. They started fresh. And he was saying if Bitcoin existed, as long as you know, if you were to put that into a cold wallet storage, let's say like a ledger, and you remembered your seed phrase, all you need to do is remember your seed phrase. You can literally be naked, flee to another country, somehow get a ledger or whatever you need, put in that ledger, and you have all of your wealth.
So you can memorize a series of words, and that would be, you'd be able to amazing.
You can go anywhere at any point. You need to flee. You need to get out of there. For example, when the war in Ukraine happened, there was they right at the end, they legalized crypto. A lot of their families converted all their money into crypto, and they fled the country. And then they got into another country, and then they just reconverted it to the local currency. So you want to talk about, a recent example of that happening to happen, unfortunately. Yeah. There's your example. And even when you look at El Salvador, they just made their reserve currency legal tender, Bitcoin. How now their economy is actually starting to stabilize, and they're starting to get more and more ways for people to use utilizing like Lightning Network and other things like that to have everyday transactions utilizing Bitcoin. So the world is changing, and people are seeing the applications for it. It's going to take time, but people are witnessing, and it's not just like in the US, we don't really see these challenges, but overseas, these are real challenges that are being faced all the time. And that's why the adoption is much higher elsewhere. Right.
Yeah. Especially like I've heard our interviews about like in Africa, where there's a lot of different countries, a lot of different currencies, a lot of different border issues and transferring money. So that's one place. But I think, with inflation being an issue that's grabbing headlines in the United States here in 2022, in the last year, I think there's been more awareness to that, to the fact that there can be forces beyond your control, beyond your personal impact, that's, stripping away buying power in the wealth that you've accumulated too.
Definitely. And the other issue with it too, the US dollar is as strong as it's ever been. The euro's been deflated and now has parity, but yet we as Americans, we're still printing money. We're still inflating ourselves. So what is that doing to the rest of the world? At what point does our inflation cause such havoc overseas that they start looking for another solution? And other countries are literally starting to evaluate other options. And, one of them is starting to come up is Bitcoin.
Yeah. Now, there are always people that are detractors and make a variety of different arguments against both Bitcoin and cryptocurrency. One of the oldest ones is that, this is going to allow people to launder money, allow gangsters, criminals to take money, and it wouldn't be trackable. What do you say to that argument?
Everything is public ledger. So there's been several cases where people tried to do that, and then someone had the time and went through all the transactions and have been uncovering people who have been trying to do that. Launderers and people who scam, they're going to try to find any new tool to do what they do. Like it's just, it comes with the territory until the end of time. Scammers are going to scam, launderers are going to launder, people are going to do what they do. And this isn't an excuse for it. However, the difference here is that because everything is literally public ledger, like you can go online and you can follow the money everywhere that you want. If you just have enough time and persistence, you can track it all. You can figure it out with enough time, persistence, and resilience. And that's something that we've never had before. Before, you couldn't really follow the money. You can follow the money now.
Yeah, there's been plenty of money laundering, right? Or like bills, like you can't trace a bill, right? That for over the years. What about, so as I said, we're recording this in August of 2022. The stock markets are down this year. Cryptocurrency market is in a bear market. How should people be adjusting to that?
So I'm not about to give financial advice. I'm going to give my perspective on what I'm currently looking at. So for your brand new person that's coming into the crypto space, bear markets are a great time for entry. And the reason being is that you are seeing people, for example, we'll just use Bitcoin. Last year, everyone in the mom was talking about, oh my gosh, this Bitcoin thing, it's crazy. It's going all the way up. It started the year at $30,000, got up to $67,000, and is now back down to 20. So you can get in at a better price than people who were raving about it a year ago. And if you look at the history of time over the course of Bitcoin, over the course of a decade, there's always been a moment where people are like, oh, it's too late. Oh, it's too expensive. When Bitcoin went from $25 to $100 and then went back down to $40, they're like, oh, I missed it. It's all a sham. Then it went from $100 to $1,000 back down to like $400. And it was like, it's a sham. Then it goes up to $1,000, up to $10,000, and comes back down. Like, you see the pattern. Like, you give Bitcoin enough time, and a lot of these blue chip cryptos, even Ethereum, like when I first got into the market, Bitcoin got up to 19,000, went all the way back down to 3,000, went up to 14,000, went all the way back down to 6,000, then went all the way up to 67,000. That's just been in the last 4 years. You see Ethereum went up to $1,400, went all the way back down to 200, and then went all the way up to 4. This is all in the last 4 years. So yes, there are moments where you will see 60 to 90% corrections. And that is a gut punch. That is hard to look at and be like, man, this thing's fake. But when you've seen this enough times, when you've seen the cycles, when you've seen the patterns start to form, you have to think of cryptocurrency as a long-term investment. If you come in as a trader, and a lot of people come in with the wrong distinction that they are traders versus an investor. Traders are trying to make a quick profit. They're trying to come in the market, out of the market. And if you are an investor, aka someone who's going to come in, put in money, and then let it ride for a while, or decide when you're going to come in and out, it's less stressful because you now have time on your side. And when you have time on your side, historically, you do pretty well. You just got to give things enough time to be able to mature. And in bear markets, typically when you enter, are good times, because when you have 90% corrections for good projects, typically you see at least a 50% retracement all the way back to potential all-time highs, or 20%, a little bit low of that over the course of 2 to 3 years. That's not bad. Mm-hmm. So when you can see the whole picture, you see and you can look at these different opportunities, decide what makes the most sense for you. I'm not saying go sell your house and take all that money and put it into crypto, but 5 to 10% that you're okay with your high risk, high reward, and then deciding on which cryptocurrencies make sense for you. And you have instead of a couple of day or couple of week or couple month trajectory, and look at it as a 3 to 5 to 10 year plan, you're probably going to have a pretty good amount of success. Yeah.
I want to ask about, I had an interesting interview with Mark Stefani, who does the Progressive Bitcoiner. And we talked about kind of traditionally disenfranchised populations and ways in which crypto and Bitcoin in particular can help kind of level the playing field, especially for people that haven't, benefited from these upswings in wealth that have happened with the economy. What do you say to people that are lower income? Maybe they're skeptical about this new technology. Why should they take it seriously? Why does it have potential for them?
2 words: generational wealth. This is the most level playing field the world has ever had to be able to create generational wealth. And everyone has a fair chance at the exact same time. Because why? People have access to internet. And by having access to internet, you can use the same tools that your advanced trader has, or whomever, that you can now go on your phone and use the same resources that everyone has. So I came with my experience at Merrill Lynch. One of the things that bothered me while I was there, unfortunately, was that seeing all the resources and tools that the wealthy have to make more money and have their money continue to multiply over time. So one, just having the access to actually being able to do those things, getting your high CDs, your yield. So, most people in the world don't have $1,000 in a savings account. But even if you have $1,000 in your savings account, you're making like 0.1%, or you're making like 1%, which is doing nothing to help grow your money.
Yeah.
But then you have your wealthy who can then go get like CDs and these other things, and they're being guaranteed anywhere from 6 to 10% year over year, just letting their money sit and build, and they're not having to do anything. They're just making money. A lot of people don't have that access. Now in the world of crypto, you have decentralized finance. You now have these different tools in place that if you have X amount of money, you can now go put it in this DeFi protocol, and it can make you 7 to 20% by letting it sit there. And you don't need a lot of money to have your money make money. And you now have the same tools and access that everyone else does. Yes, there's more risk because you have to do your due diligence. You have to understand what's going on. You have to understand how to put all the stuff in. But again, you can do the research. You can spend the time. You can do all this stuff and learn it and do it and use it yourself. Whereas most people, the only way that they have access is through financial advisors or through people who deal with money all the time. And then not just that, you have to have enough money. And we're talking $100,000 plus to be able to participate in some of these high yielding opportunities. And so this is completely leveled the playing field. The story I like to go to is, if you knew about Bitcoin as soon as it came out, someone the day like, hey, look at this thing, put it $20 in. So in 2010, you put in $20 worth of Bitcoin. Today, that'd be worth $5 to $6 million. So in 12 years, you would be a multi-millionaire off of $20. That is unreal. Even looking at Ethereum, if you put in $20 when it first came out and you waited till now to take it out, you'd be worth 6 figures. So you just made over $100,000 on $20. I'm not saying there's going to be just an absurd amount of cryptos that have that same opportunity, but there will be more. There has been more. And by educating yourself in this space, by diversifying yourself into this space, you can have a little bit of money turn into an absurd amount of money, all because you participated, you educated yourself, you diversified into the space.
I know we're running a little short on time, but before we wrap up, I want to ask about two terms that get thrown out a lot now. They are NFTs, or non-fungible tokens, and also Web3. Those are two that we've seen in headlines a lot recently. For those who haven't heard those terms or aren't familiar with them, tackle them. How do we understand what they are and what their potential are?
So let's talk about NFTs first, non-fungible tokens. So there's a lot of paths that we can go, but one of the easiest ways is to think of a profile picture. So one of the most famous NFTs right now are CryptoPunks and Bored Ape Yacht Club. Matter of fact, the Bored Ape Yacht Club, literally just on the VMAs, Snoop Dogg and Eminem did a performance where their bored apes went into the metaverse and then did a performance. And so it's starting to become even more in mainstream and hip hop culture, et cetera. So an NFT, a non-fungible token, can be used in a lot of different ways. It can be used as a PFP, which is like a profile picture that you can like use on Twitter and other stuff like that, where you can identify with this thing, where there's a certain amount that is created, and then you can follow it on the blockchain and see what it was sold for, who it was all created for, et cetera. So I'm talking from there's two use cases, the people who are purchasing them and using them, and then the people who are creating. Now, the reason why NFTs, you're like, well, I have this JPEG picture, like, why can't I just like copy it and do whatever? Well, before you could, and that's where a lot of people, there's like Getty Images and these other things where you have to pay for these pictures. A lot of them can't really prove the origination and like who owns it and who does what. By putting this on blockchain, you can now do that. And now, not just that, you can make residual income. So there's a lot of famous artists out there. One is, for example, Banksy. Banksy, when he first came out, made a lot of art that he didn't get to make a lot of money off of when he originally did it. So let's say one of his first pieces he sold for $10,000, and that same piece today is worth $10 million. He only made $10,000. That's all he'll ever make. Yeah. If he had done it as an NFT, he would have made that $10,000 off of that original NFT, and then whatever his fee is, and let's say it's 10%. Every time it's resold, he makes 10%. So now he has lifelong residual income off of that one piece.
Yeah. And I also think it's fascinating how you could do this for other forms of creators or artists as well, whether it's, illustrators or musicians or filmmakers or whatever.
Absolutely. I interviewed a guy recently named Spotty Wi-Fi. He's a rapper based in New York. And he was saying that he was able to sell out his collection of music that he created and made over 6 figures in like 6 minutes. Wow. And it's just allowing people to uniquely be able to create new revenue streams for themselves. And there's the opportunities and the ways that NFTs can be utilized are pretty limitless. And I'm excited that we're just at the beginning of this journey. There's a lot of ways that this is going to be unpacked, and NFTs could be an entire episode. So I'll stop there.
Yeah.
Switching over to Web3. So when people say Web 3.0, what do they mean? So Web 1.0, the first internet boom and then the wave of the first internet, it was just read. So you go on these very basic websites, you can go there and you can read what's going on. There's not a lot of back and forth interaction. It's just you're there looking. Web 2.0 is read write. So Facebook, MySpace, etc. You can go on there, you can see what's going on, you can write on people's posts. It's a back and forth conversation, etc. Web 3.0 is read, write, own. So now you are owning what is happening, being part of the system. So if you are going and contributing to different posts in different communities, now you can earn, whether it's the local cryptocurrency that's there, or whether it is, if you're part of like a DAO, decentralized autonomous organization, and again, another buzzword for another day, but you can then earn by participating in that community and doing different things and then being rewarded for it. Like imagine all the people who spent an absurd amount of time on Facebook, on MySpace, etc.
Twitter, yeah.
Imagine if you could have gotten any money just purely based on activities you did on that platform.
Right.
That's what Web3 is now providing for you.
That's exciting to me because sometimes it seems like some of these big tech platforms, Facebook is one of them, has so much momentum, so much control over our society and everything. And it seems like, how is it even possible that they could possibly someone could dethrone them. But you mentioned like DAOs, decentralized organizations. It shows that potential so that, people can come be a part of this community and be engaged. Wikipedia is another example, right? Like people do it, or Yelp, they participate in these communities because they get satisfaction out of being a part of it. But why not give them ownership as well? Why not have a way that they can benefit rather than, the handful of people who own the tech platform at the top?
Right. Well, one of the ways that you can look at it, right? If you're on a platform and it's free and you're like, well, how are they making money or whatever it is? It's you are the product. It's you. Now in Web 3.0, because you are a part of it, now you get to receive that. Now you get to own a piece of the pie and get to earn from it. And like, that's what makes it so special.
Yeah, that's great. Richard, this has been really fascinating. Thank you for engaging me and hopping around from topic to topic as I've kind of weaved and bobbed and stuff like that. Where can people go to learn more about you and learn more about cryptocurrency?
Absolutely. So you can go to crypto-current.co. We're on all social platforms. You can find us on Twitter, Discord, Telegram, Facebook. Just search cryptocurrent. You're going to find us. And we have a lot of really good educational content on there. What's great about cryptocurrent, we're not selling you anything. We're just trying to give you information. We're trying to give you resources. I want you to be empowered to be able to make your own decisions, but I also want you to be able to get alpha and get some really cool opportunities to learn about projects extremely early. For example, I threw a conference back in 2019 for Decentraland, and one of our speakers was Decentraland. And at the time, when I was first learning about it, you could go on Coinbase and it was worth 3 cents. At the height of last year, it got up to like $5. So like, imagine if you had learned about it, said, no, I'm just going to throw $100 at this thing. It's now worth a tremendous amount of money, right? So it's just, we want to be able to show you a lot of really cool projects in the space while providing you education. And that's it.
Cool. Richard, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Smart Business Revolution podcast with John Corcoran. Find out more at smartbusinessrevolution.com. And while you're there, sign up for our email list and join the revolution.
Revolution.
And be listening for the next episode of the Smart Business Revolution podcast.